It's kind of crazy to me that so many people still see meditation as this woo-woo practice that only hippies do. Meditation will change your life. So many people overcomplicate it. You're literally sitting there dwelling into your mind. Meditation is less rather than more. If you're like most people, you are probably practicing mindfulness rather than mindfulness. Mindfulness is filling your mind with distraction at every opportunity. You're never giving your mind a moment to think. Mindfulness is meditation. Meditation. So you need to ask yourself, are you in control of your mind, or does your mind control you? If you're constantly filling your mind at every opportunity with distraction, that is the thing that is programming your mind. Of course, seek information, entertain yourself, but don't do that all the time. If you're doing that all the time, how are you allowing yourself to develop your own opinion and your own ideas? When you first start to meditate, you'll sit down and you'll realize that it's very hard for you to sit alone with your thoughts. When was the last time that you actually sat down and allowed yourself to think without being consumed by some form of instant gratification or escapism? If you haven't realized it yet, being a human is absolutely fascinating. The fact that you can talk to yourself in your head, come up with ideas, and then put those ideas into action and bring them into reality with your physical body is amazing. You are pure consciousness in physical form. You're not a physical body that has a spirit inside of it. You are a spiritual being housed inside a perfectly assembled meat vehicle, experiencing everything that the third dimension has to offer. If you're stressed, anxious, or depressed, you need to meditate. Your mind and body are both trying to tell you something. You're just not listening properly. If your mind is like a monkey, bouncing around all over the place in the absence of a mind-numbing distraction, you need to meditate. Running away from your mind and filling it with nonsense is a recipe for disaster. Face it head on. It's one of the most rewarding things you'll do. This is how magic is done, by hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it's a feather bed. Your mind is your friend. It's the most powerful tool you have access to. If it isn't working in your favor, it's because you've been neglecting it. There's loads of different ways that you can practice meditation. But when you boil it down, meditation is the art of attention. It's the art of understanding yourself. It's the art of observing consciousness. It's the act of coming to your senses. When most people hear the word meditation, they picture someone sitting in the lotus position with their hands like this. It's actually a great way to practice meditation. But like I said, meditation can come in many forms. You can sit or lay down. You can practice a walking meditation. You can do yoga. You can play sport. You can paint or draw. Meditation is less rather than more. It's the removal of distraction and completely coming to your senses. Meditation is mindfulness, the complete opposite of what most humans practice on a daily basis, which is mindfulness. Meditation is the act of observing consciousness in its raw form from a non-judgmental standpoint. I'm not going to pretend like I know the ins and outs of consciousness, but simply put, consciousness is the awareness of an internal and external existence. How often do you find yourself doing something, but you're on complete autopilot in your mind? Doing one thing with your hands, but another with your head. The world around you is constantly chipping away at your attention span, constantly taking you away from the real world and the real you. That magic rectangle that you have in your hand right now is the biggest culprit. You need to develop the ability to pay attention more, because when you come to your senses, you are you in the here and now. If you're constantly indulging in escapism through social media, Netflix, weed, alcohol, music, or gaming, you're never giving your mind the space it needs to think properly. Again, practice mindfulness, not mindfulness. Like anything, starting is the hardest part. Just sitting down with no distraction, closing your eyes and breathing, you will find hard at the start. So to make it a bit easier for you, you should sit down and follow a structured practice. We live in a time where we have access to so much information, so get yourself on YouTube, type in Alan Watts guided meditation and follow along to that. Alan Watts is a wise man. He changed my perspective on a lot of things. I basically started meditation after finding him online. There's so much content out there, so just try a few and see what you like. That Alan Watts video on YouTube is one that I tend to come back to every now and then. Maybe it's because it's one that I connected with when I started, or maybe it's just a good video. Give it a try and see what you think. Here's 3 other forms of meditation for you to try. Breath-focused meditation, mental noting, visualization. Breath-focused meditation is exactly what you would think it is. You are focusing on the act of breathing. Your mind will wander all over the place. All you need to do is that when you notice that you are lost in thought, is bring your attention back to your breathing. Repeat this process as many times as necessary. Sit or lay down in a comfortable position, in a place where you won't be disturbed. Breathe as you normally would, without influencing the tempo or depth. Do this for 6 breaths. Then elongate each breath until your lungs are comfortably full when inhaling and comfortably empty when exhaling. Focus on the feeling of your abdomen and your chest as they rise and fall. When you reach the top of your inhalation, don't force the air out of your lungs. Allow it to fall out at its own pace. Some tips for this practice: when you breathe in, ensure that your abdomen expands first and then allow your chest to follow. There is no right or wrong pace. Just aim for slow and steady breathing. You will find your own natural rhythm. If you find it easier, you can say rising and falling in your mind. The method of mental noting is a great way of getting you to come to your senses. It's performed by making a mental note of the primary object in your mental and physical experience. You just make a mental note of what sense door your attention is focused on. For example, when you hear something, you mentally note hearing, hearing, hearing. When you think about something, you mentally note thinking, 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 and so on for the other senses. You shouldn't analyze what comes up. You just need to label it. Sit or lay down in a comfortable position in a spot where you will not be disturbed. Breathe as you normally would without influencing the tempo or depth. Do this for 6 breaths. Come to your senses. Pay attention to the sense door that presents itself and label it correctly. Hearing, thinking, smelling, touching, seeing, tasting. Once you are performing this effortlessly, drop the mental noting and continue to notice what sense door you are at with moment-to-moment awareness. Come back to the noting if necessary. Some tips for this practice: try not to fixate on one sense door and do not worry if you seem to be hopping around all of the 6 sense doors. Practicing this method somewhere in nature is a very enjoyable experience. This practice can also be completed during your daily activities. Visualization. Visualization can be used for so many different things. You can use it to make yourself feel relaxed, motivated, happy. You can use it to make yourself feel more confident about a job interview that's coming up. There really are no limits as to what you can do with visualization. This type of meditation involves creating thoughts and images within your mind that have a powerful effect on your mental and physical experience. If you've ever heard of Joe Dispenza, you know there are miraculous things that can be done with meditation. Joe Dispenza himself claims that he healed his own spine through meditation and visualization. We're so much more powerful than we know. Sit or lay down in a comfortable position in a spot where you will not be disturbed. Allow yourself to breathe as you normally would without influencing the tempo or depth. Do this for 6 breaths. Create a mental picture of the place or situation you want to be in. Paint the picture with as much detail as possible, focusing on what you can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Allow yourself to feel exactly as you would if you were there in the physical world. You can be as creative as you want with this process. If you want to relax, walk along the beach and listen to the sound of the waves crashing, then that's all you need to imagine. If you want to think about what your future version looks like, your highest possible version, sit there and picture this person. How do they walk? How do they speak? What is their job? How do they eat? What do they do on a day-to-day basis? How do they think? The more you do this, the more you can step into that person. Some tips for visualization: playing sounds in the background can aid the experience. For example, the sound of waves crashing. Be creative. Imagine any scenario you want. Picture your goals coming true and what it would feel like if it were to happen. There's so many techniques out there that you can use during your meditation practice. One thing that works for me might not work for you. Just remember that your mind is the head of your temple. It runs everything. It's where everything comes from. Take the time to sit down and observe what is going on in your consciousness. Don't just numb it, don't just feel it. Pay attention to what is happening, because it's just you in there. Your job is to make it an enjoyable place to be.